I mean, it's a good point maybe then to talk about how you do position your brand or your company in the right sector to reach the right kind of customers. Like you said, we are having lots of sort of travel agents who perhaps have only got one presence on the high street, but how do you understand your customers' other lifestyle choices and make sure that you're speaking to them perhaps in the right tone to which they are being spoken to by other retail and consumption and lifestyle situations?
It's about engagement, really, and having that relationship. I sat in a very interesting debate a while back with a lot of top luxury goods brands from sort of Richemont and LVMH, and a lot of marketing actually boils down to the very basic concept of having a friendship, having a relationship with somebody, and we can talk in marketing jargon, but what it comes down to at the end of the day is having that rapport with somebody.
And how do you make sure, I mean, obviously with British Airways, 3, sometimes 4 different classes, should we say, of customer. Do you speak to them in different languages? I mean, sort of as a travel agent, for example, as well, how would you go to speak to somebody for one offer, and then you've got somebody you've got the 5-star top holiday. How do you sort of make sure you get your pitch and tone correctly for the right type of customer?
Well, it very much depends on what the needs are of that particular customer. So when we're talking about our different products, we try to make sure that for travel agents, we're able to talk in the right type of language. So if it's someone who's potentially more price driven, then we're able to talk about the value for money that British Airways would give you. If you're talking to someone who's in the market for buying a first class ticket, potentially someone for whom money is no object, then it's about really making sure that we articulate what our experience is going to give them versus one of our competitors. So we really try to make sure that we tailor the type of communication that we're sending out.
We're talking here sort of different brands of first and business and so on. But I think in Jumeirah, with our 2 brands, I think there is an opportunity for a company to operate two brands within one umbrella. But I do think they ought to be culturally connected. There's got to be some consistency about what the expectations. And I don't think you can operate them at 2 different standards. I think it's got to be, for the price that you're paying, that you have to be delivering the same expectation, the same delivery of service.
That's right.
It's there.
And I think from a communication perspective, it's about relevancy. And so by knowing who your customer is, and if you have a relevant conversation with them, and that could be the tone of voice, the product message that you're giving out, it could be the environment in which you're talking to them. If you're relevant, then you've got a good chance of connecting with them and engaging with them properly. And so actually, in terms of where we place our communications, it can't be a scattergun, and this is true for a travel agent as well, it can't be a scattergun approach to communication. It's, who am I trying to talk to, where are they, what do they read, what is their life choice, and I need to be present and relevant to that individual, and therefore I've got a good chance of connecting with them. So yeah, we do that for sure. If we want to talk to the family market, we put ourselves in environments where mothers are likely to be looking or reading, maybe not even looking for a holiday, but just in terms of spending their Sunday afternoon, what might she be doing, or what might that family be doing, and how can I put my destination in front of them and talk about my family product and be relevant to that individual. There's no point in having that conversation with somebody who's got no children. So you need to be able to segment them and target them properly and have a relevant conversation.
Is there not an issue of value that, obviously, for your product to be successful, it has to be perceived as having value, and they also have to reward loyalty to it. And so we have a very substantial loyalty scheme, as does British Airways, which ours is called Sirius. But I think that it's also giving something back to the customers on a regular basis, as a reward basis for coming to it and building that relationship.
I suppose one of the questions really is also, a lot of it could be beyond your control as the head of the tourist office. So how do you sort of manage?
Everything is possible in Dubai.
Everything's possible. I mean, as a destination, I think I'm in a slightly different situation than the other 3 people here, because you're right. I promote Dubai as a destination, and I always stay true to the values that we create for the destination. But in terms of whether you call it dilution or however you want to talk about it, but airlines promote the destination, hotels promote the destination, tour operators promote the destination, and they all have a slightly different take on it. The media have a view on the destination, and so all that clearly impacts the consumer's image of what Dubai is, and that's part of my challenge actually is to try and overcome that, and it's back to brand values again. So whenever I'm talking to, it could be travel agents or consumers actually, it's just been very, very consistent in terms of my language, what I'm saying, and constantly reminding people of the benefits and allow people to make their own choice.
Is this what it's becoming more about now, is this the one-off things that you can experience, and the price tag is a luxury price tag, but the experience may not be the gold taps and the the all-out kind of luxury which we've sort of built up in the last few years. And surely luxury moves in cycles anyway. It comes in the 80s it was it meant one thing, in the 90s it meant another, and now it means something else. So in these today, in these days, what does it actually mean?
It's reflective of the atmospheric style of the people at the time. So at the moment we're in recessionary times, you clearly wouldn't be thinking of a luxury brand in terms of bling. I mean, it just would be entirely inappropriate. You think of the extravagance of the people in the 80s with, some of those massive city bonuses, everybody drove around in sparkling Porsches and so on. You just don't see that now. And so, and those luxury products that we do have now in a recessionary time are discreet. But the unique thing is the fact that they are unique experiences. That you're buying something which is almost priceless because it is that special, that different.
I think people really are seeking out things that are more authentic these days. When we speak to people who tend to be in the market for buying first-class tickets, they're not necessarily always staying in the most ostentatious place or eating in the most expensive restaurants, but they're seeking out experiences, like you say there, that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get elsewhere. And that's why when we designed our new first-class cabin, the environment that we actually created was meant to reflect more of a contemporary, understated design rather than something that was very showy, gold-plated. It was meant to be a sort of serene environment that you could sit in and enjoy the flight.
And because everyone's so busy and stressed, and you create the right environment.
But at the same time, something that you knew you were sitting in something that was luxurious, but it was luxurious in a way that was more understated and contemporary.
To further endorse that, I have a lovely quote here actually from an Indian prince, and he said, "Luxury is about enjoying the essence of life, the freedom of space. It shouldn't be forced, it exists in the real thing." And I think actually there's been a real shift. I mean, certainly in the 80s and at our height of sort of consumerism, luxury is more product focused. I think today it's more soul food and experience, and it's what it does for you and it does for your spirit and it does for your sense of belonging and your sense of peace as well.
Sometimes it's treacherous ground, I think.
Absolutely.
If it is about experiences that you've just described, and I totally agree with you, then they're different for every individual, aren't they? And therefore you can't say, okay, you're in the luxury market, therefore what you want is, here's a list of things that suit you because you're in the luxury market, and that's dangerous territory.
Your sense of what is luxurious to you changes over the years as you grow as a person, I think.
So should a brand then also try and grow with you too?
I think brands do grow. I think they
So they
innovate.
can-
Brands have different stories, and very often it's the backwater story that's important because the consumer is becoming more savvy, more knowledgeable. They can see behind the brand now. There's much more transparency with media and social media. So there's nowhere to hide. You can't have any sort of skeletons in closets anymore as a brand. And it may be that the consumer really needs to know what the moral, the ethical standards are that you set. I mean, fair trade, for example, fair wages, etc. If you're a fashion house, are you employing child labour or not? Where are they based? Do you look after them? So those stories the back stories are just as important as the front image of a brand, because the consumer now has access to that information, and actually it's part of their increasing moral code as well.
I think what our debate has shown as well is that you can't just sort of pinpoint luxury as a sort of a very niche market, and so I think it really comes down to being really clear on who you're targeting as well, because I think you can't just pick off one segment and say, well, they're the luxury segment. I think what we've talked about is that there are different types of experiences that potentially could all be classified as a luxury experience for many different ways. So I think brands these days have to be really clear on who they're going to be targeting, so that they actually develop the right type of products or service for that consumer. Otherwise, you'll end up trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few last words on how we can use any of this as a travel agent to make sure that we pitch ourselves in the right situation and that we can be part of our clients' lifestyles.
Well, I think Curini's got a number of retail outlets, and we also work with the travel trade as well and support them to sell our product, and have done for decades. And I think again, certainly if you look at the travel agent as an active retailer in a local community, it is about knowing that community, the business and the consumer, the business person and the consumer, and what is relevant for them, and developing the relationships. And so that they do, as I said earlier, become advocates and ambassadors for you, because word of mouth recommendation is ultimately the best.
For a travel agent, I would say, listen, we've said this before, listen to your customers, don't try and second guess them, try and understand where they're at in their life, their lifestyle, their life choices, so you can make an appropriate brand fit, and build a relationship with them. The relationship is key, so get their feedback when they come back from their experience from that holiday. Talk to them, how was it? Did I match the correct hotel or whatever else? So you can learn from them, and if they believe that you have their best interests at heart, then they're going to come back to you. It's about being relevant and consistent.
I think you're right, Fiona. I do think that advocacy is something that's just hugely important for brands, and I think any type of company, whether it be our type of business or whether it's a travel agent themselves, I think if you can have somebody walking out of your door say, they've gone in with and they've come out with something that meets their needs, they will talk about it. So I think what that also means is that first point of contact with the customer is so vitally key, because that first impression that will leave a mark on them, and it's something that they will take away. So make sure that you understand the customer up front and deliver a great experience right from the offset.
Thanks very much to all my panellists for coming along to the Jumeirah Carlton Tower in London, and thank you for watching our Cornerstones of Luxury Branding session. Stay online now and you'll be able to chat to all the panellists.